This was a full strategy that I worked on as part of a team, where we started with our own research. We were commissioned to do the research, and then from the research, we developed insights that informed the channels, the messaging, and the creative rollout. So it was for a marketing and brand strategy, and it was a two-phase strategy development. Phase one was the strategic research to develop insights. So the client approached us with a problem that they were noticing. And the problem was that other players in the life insurance landscape were beginning to encroach on the client's unique messaging and brand proposition. So the first brief was to conduct a competitor brand analysis of 18 other players, key media messaging to give detailed understanding to the problem. In order to achieve the business objective, which was to ascertain and understand which of the 18 competitors identified are beginning to use the concept of change moments to construct their brand message orientation. So the research and analysis method, we started by gathering the data on 18 competitors. We gathered data on their advertising messaging through the line, so print, broadcasting, and digital. And we used a media service called Ornico to gather all the data that we needed. And then we also conducted desktop research into digital and social messaging. So that was the research phase, which was managed by a teammate of mine who liaised with Ornico to ensure that all the data we needed was collected and collated in a usable manner. And then we went into two phases of analysis. The first level was we created a specific set of analysis criteria and applied them to the data on each company. So these 5 points are the analysis criteria that we use to apply to the data. And then once we had the raw information, we applied the second level of analysis, which was refining the first level results using a loose coding technique or content analysis, and drawing insights from the refined information. So the results were as follows. We identified the main brand message orientation of the competitor, and then we looked at whether this competitor was using their main brand message orientation was similar to that of the clients. And then we looked at whether it was used explicitly, tacitly, or not at all. And then we looked at whether the brand proposition was used in branding message in the media. And then we looked at whether it was used as sales and promotion messaging. We looked at whether it was used as brand messaging in web copy. And then we also aligned this with the size of the competitor by their media spend. And from these variables, we used the qualitative content analysis to derive a scale of threat percentage in terms of branding and spend. So we used their size and also all of these brand orientations data sets to come up with these percentages, which showed whether they were, which showed how big the threat was of them using the same brand proposition as the client. And this is only a subset. It's a sample, but we did do this for the full list of 18 competitors. So from these results, we visualized the scale of the threats, and we identified that there were a few players that were beginning to encroach quite strongly on the brand proposition of the client, most notably Liberty Life and Sanlam, as well as a few smaller players. So this one was for Clientele Life, and this one was for Outsurance. So this gave us quite a nice snapshot of what the threat was and how real the threat was. From there, from the results as well, we drew which companies we identified through content analysis, through coding and frequency, what the main messages were, and we identified how often those messages were used. So we saw that the biggest message used was better health and quality of life. But then we also identified that change and change moments were being used quite significantly, with change moments being used as the second largest message. So we used these results to go into the next steps. Which was to begin the communication strategy and determine the channels and brainstorm creative execution, develop the roadmap and budget, develop the campaign conceptual messaging, and develop messaging audience matrix, then to collate the final strategy document and write the first creative brief with the messaging that we came up with in order to bring the research and the insights and the strategy down into the real world with this one over here. So then we went into phase 2, which was the brand strategy development. So using the insights, we confirmed the problem was real, and we established 2 business objectives. So entrench brand message ownership, so that even if competitors do use the client's brand message, we own it so strongly that even though competitors are using it, the client is the owner of that message. And also the second objective was to access a new geographical market. So the client wanted to reach more firmly into the Western Cape and develop a stronger target market base there. So we decided on which campaigns and channels we were going to use. So the biggest push was a national rugby team sponsorship, and the second was a website redesign and development. The third was to develop web applications that would entrench the brand message, and also we looked at inbound marketing or automation, which hasn't yet been realized but is on the cards. So for this one, this was to go for the second objective, access a new geographical market. So we sponsored a team of we sponsored using sponsorship data, which we paid for. We went for the team that was most supported by the geographical area that we were trying to reach into. And then that would also help serve the first business objective. And these two were more strongly focused on entrenching the brand message. So this was what the roadmap and budget looked like. This is mostly where my team came in, but we did work quite closely with the client's content team to do the strat work and to make sure it was aligned to the objectives we were trying to achieve, and then also that it was always informing the implementation and that it would roll out across a multi-channel consumer campaign, and always informed by the strategy that led into the content creation. So the next step was to come up with a campaign conceptual messaging, which was a strategic rationale, a creative rationale that then aligned all the creative messaging. And this is how we broke up the audience messaging matrix. So we got highly granular with the audiences. So for every stakeholder category, whether it be internal employees or whether it be the media or whether it be shareholders in the company, we used that. We put them here. And then what was the objective that we wanted to achieve with this campaign and with the multi-channel campaign that we were setting up with this strategy. And then we split the stakeholder category up into audience and specific groups within that broader audience. And then I wrote the message based off the conceptual rationale for the campaigns. And with that message, what was the desired takeout we wanted to achieve? So from this, we went into a high-level creative brief. So this, we looked at all the different scenarios of the campaign, which you can see over here, which we used, which was what we were allowed to use, leverage with the sponsorship. So this is what all that we got from the sponsorship package. And then we put timings and we put objectives, and then we broke it down into audience, message, and the key takeouts that we wanted this audience to receive from this message. And then desired outcomes. So what did we want the messaging, the channel and the messaging to achieve? And this is what, this was some high-level creative ideas that we could use per channel. So you'll see that there's quite a lot of ideas here. These would then go into a more detailed creative brief that was then taken over by the content team. So from the strategy, we had some strong final outputs. So we had a conceptual strategic rationale to inform the content creation. We developed brand guidelines for the campaign, and we built creative briefs speaking to audience and key messaging. So a summary of what the strategy development looked like is that we conducted our own research to identify what the threat was, and then from the insights we got from the research, we then went into planning the objectives and choosing the channels and creating the key messaging that we would execute across the channels through creative in order to reach the business objectives.